Hello, everyone. My name is Professor Victor Chang. I'm very honored to give a talk on behalf of the team. The title of the talk is called Digitalization in Omnichannel Healthcare Supply Chain Businesses. The role of smart wearable devices were published in Journal of Business Research, JBR, one of the top business journal. And we would like to break down the talk as follows. We will talk about the research background, and then with the research objective and hypothesis, followed by data and methodology, with the analysis and finding, with the conclusion. And then we will then justify the unique contribution we have and the reason that you should consider citing our paper. And I'm going to start with the research background. As you know, the emergence of digitalization and the Internet of Things has transformed healthcare businesses and operations, because now instead of the doctor-centric operation, that it has been moved into the patient-centric and information-rich healthcare. And as you know, that there are many smart devices that on the body to measure different biometric and useful information, so to help the doctors to make better diagnosis, and also it allows the patient to know the state of their own well-being. Because especially, for instance, like diabetic patients, they have to know the glucose level in the body, and also with the heart disease patients, that they cannot understand whether the heartbeats have any out of range of levels of heartbeat. And that's why the omni-channel strategy could align patient journey with the care plans, improve patients' experiences, optimize the clinical process, and eliminate formal inefficiencies by using the innovative technology and data-driven analytics to help to improve on the revolution of the healthcare sector. So the digital health, together with the digital health information, inquiring electronic medical records, patients portal, mobile health, telemedicine, and healthcare wearables, together with other remote monitoring appliances, it has provided a very rich and vast amount of resources being available. So now, with all these improvement in technology and services, it allows us to know much better and quicker the reasons why we have contracted certain diseases, and then even to help the doctors to know the reasons of having such diseases, and together with healthcare wearable devices, so that they provide very resilient way of the tool to track and manage individual health, as mentioned before, so that they provide more in-depth information about the behavior, guidance, and health information. As you can see, that those smart wearables actually provide very useful information. And although wearable devices allow omnichannel healthcare supply chain businesses to communicate with patients seamlessly, such devices expose many risks associated with the sensors and omnipresent data collection and storage. And then associated ethical issues were underestimated, because that means that the data can be exposed to the service provider, but also any people in the process, so that you can then and even read the data, even out of your expectation, or even there is a possibility that those data may be given to certain people you don't want them to know. So the ethical issues are the barriers to the wearables in omnichannel supply chain collaboration, because instead of safeguarding the patient's privacy to the top level, in that process, there can be also people that have to know and get access to data. Therefore, ethical issue becomes so important these days. And then what happens is that the research objective and hypothesis will help us to understand further. And first of all, the study aims to create awareness of the current ethical implication of wearable uses in the healthcare sector, supporting omnichannel supply chain management. So they have to understand the importance, but also to support the current challenges we have, especially for supply chain management. So this study addresses to fulfill the gap by examining the actual usage of wearables and their predictors in healthcare, such as demographics, privacy and security concerns, technological and healthcare related factors. So it's not only to understand the implication, but also to examine different factors, so that then we then use them then to understand the implications and any impacts to demographics, privacy and security, and any technological healthcare related factors. So hypothesis, although they looked a lot, the explanations are in our paper, but then it's important for us to get the keywords. So first of all, the individual concerns about the data privacy and security. So then data privacy and security is the keyword will be negatively related to the use of the healthcare variable, the age of the individual. So the second hypothesis about the age will be negatively related to the use of healthcare wearables, because usually, but not all the time, younger people tend to be more acceptive to the technology. The gender of the individual will be correlated to the use of healthcare wearable. In some cases, gender might be in a case. And then the fourth hypothesis on the education level will be positively related to the use of the healthcare wearables. The higher the level of the education, the more acceptable to that technology, and income level of the individual will be positively associated with the use of healthcare wearables. So the income is in positive association with the acceptance of the healthcare wearables, and the marital status, whether you get married or not, they have an impact on the healthcare wearables and its usage, and the race, ethnicity of the individual will impact on the use of the healthcare wearables, and the importance of person, places on health management will be positively related to its use of the healthcare wearable. So in the personal values, if you see that as a high important, therefore that you are more likely to use. And the user experiences with other technology products will be positively correlated with the use of the healthcare wearable. So if you have a positive experience with other technologies or related products, then you are more likely to be more acceptable for that. And the user experience with other technology products will be positively associated with the people's data privacy and security concerns. So if you have used those technology, then you are more aware of the data privacy and security. So just to make everything more simple, so then what we have done is that this is an overall workflow to help you and to help us to understand what would be the research approach. So we have the research at the beginning and then to the end, and this is the exploratory research. We need to identify what are the key terms that will be used. So we start with the literature search and investigation with the identification and of constructs to understand what need to be checked and evaluated, and then with the developing and proposing conceptual model, because we have to have a conceptual model to center around those important factors we think that will be useful for you to look into it. And then we'll have a data collection and with a data cleaning process. So on the other side of the research is that we have to then perform a series of the work. So we have to, first of all, have the validation results, and with the prediction of machine learning algorithms, with the structure model assessment, and with the scale accuracy analysis and exploratory data analysis. And of course, we can then also work in this circular manner in an anti-clockwise way. So we can then start with the statistical analysis, with the structural model assessment, and with the machine learning, and then we can validate the results. So it's just to give you a overall workflow. And of course, in our experience is that in the anti-clockwise direction, but of course, there are also people that they can also use the other way to express how they should conduct their research. Then for data collection, we then use the Health Information National Trend Survey, the cycle 3 and 4, that has the acronym as HINT, data by National Cancer Institute of the USA. And the period of time is between January 2019 to April 2019, with a respondent rates of 30.3%, and also the second period from February 2020 to June 2020 with a response rate of 37%. So sometimes we can use the secondary data provided by reputable source, and there's also one way of doing research. But also there are other researchers that can also collect the data on their own. But because all this kind of research is very largely dependent on the amount of funding, because when the amount of funding is also one of the factors. But then by looking at this research, just in short, they are about 9,303 respondents now data set, including 2,066 cases online and 7,237 cases by paper. So that we have the real respondent in the data set collectively from online and also in person. So there are more data being collected in person. So attributes include the demographics, privacy, security concern, healthcare related and technological factors. So we understand what we'll be looking at. And then with the data preprocessing, the inappropriate and missing answers coded with a value less than 0 were removed. So 915 respondents answered in error, 10 unreadable responses, and 2,941 missing values. 3,166 inapplicable answers were removed. Consequently, there were 3,196 samples being remain in the data set after cleaning data. So we have to perform a series of data preprocessing. And then just to show the relations between a hypothesis and the usage of smart wearables. So we have a simplified version being represented by the conceptual model. So H1 means that this is the first hypothesis. We are looking at the privacy and security concern. And then you can then know the second one is on age. The third one is on gender. The fourth one is on educational level. Fifth one is income. The sixth one is marital status. The seventh one is race. And then the number 8 is the physical activity and healthcare related. And number 9 is technology. But also when you have a higher level of acceptance of technology, you're more likely to have concerns on the privacy and security concern. And the reason we put them in different clusters is that this is about individual status, about age, gender, marital status, and also this is about you as a person. This is about anything about you, such as race, education, income that may influence your point of view. So we put them together, and that is more about your acceptance level to technology and also concerns for privacy and security. And there is the physical activity and healthcare related activity. So if you are more likely to be involved with a healthcare activity, then your views towards the usage of wearable devices. And that is a very quick summary about the conceptual framework. But if you can, please also read our paper for further details. Then in terms of machine learning implementation process, because there are different techniques of understanding what the data is all about, and also we have to extract the most important message from data. Therefore, machine learning will be also one of the key techniques for us to understand. So we normalize the data. We normalize the data from data set, and we have split the data into 80% to 20% for to train the data and to test data. So when we under the training of the 80%, we have the use the machine learning to build and train a model to understand how to better train a model and understand any further implications, so that we then can further build the automated process. And then we have the hypermeter tuning automatic model setting. It means that when the machine will be able to understand further, so you will be able to adapt itself and then make certain changes and to make certain suggestions on behalf of the human. But also we have to evaluate the model through testing, because sometimes by testing the data, we may also find any discrepancy. Therefore, they will also undergo a series of fine-tuning, which means that you improve the model, you optimize it, and then you get to the result closer to the reality. And then after a series of events and also tests, then we then can better evaluate the model with a higher level of accuracy. Then we normalize the data of 20%, so to give some kind of good representation of what the sample size and also the general view or overall view from the data. And that is a quick summary for that. So the analysis and finding, this is one of the key contributions. I'm going to explain them in detail. So first of all, analytics help us to understand the result in a very short period of time. And also, we have to take on the mixed methods, which means that there are also qualitative and quantitative analysis. So qualitative analysis means that to understand the overview and also how people's perception of that. So from 2017 to 2021, that has been a 5-year period, then we understand what will be the perceptions from the keywords category. So then we understand the topic through the keywords. So then we realize that privacy and security are always the top concerns for any usage of the smart wearables, regardless of any domains, and in particular to healthcare. But also, there are also some concern whether the concern use of data, but also other topics different from that, but also the safety of use of data. But most of the time, people first impression is, well, oh, that's my data, and how we are going to use it, and then who will have that data, and is the other service provider will have that, and there are always concerns for that. Number of studies range from 7 to all the way to 25, and you may find that in certain years you have more number of studies on similar topics, and there are some with fewer options. And this is just a quick summary in the last 5 years or so, but also result of the qualitative analysis shows that there are some of the security and privacy, and we can use the text analysis results word cloud graph. So word cloud graph will actually help us to understand the frequency. So the bigger the word font size, it means that it will show that the importance and also the frequency. So it means that the security and privacy have been shown more on a regular basis, but also the network diagram for key concept of the review study shows that how different topics are related to one or the other. So this is the privacy and security. Then as you can see that there are also other related topics. And then in terms of the connections to other topics, you can see that confidentiality, responsibility, safety, trust, consent, and justice, they are all related. So this should show a very quick overview of how different topics are related to one or to the other. And also there are other topics, and also such as authentication, reliability, they also make sense. And so also we have the exploratory data analysis. So among the reported respondents, the 25.87% use healthcare wearables in the past 12 months, in which non-Hispanic white ones about 16.41%, and female 15.41%, married ones 14.40%, graduated college and higher education ones 14.25%, and the ones had annual income higher than US $75,000, 13.73% were most likely adopting healthcare wearables. So this is just a summary based on what we have observed from this data. So if in this data, those range of people who in this criteria, they are most likely to adopt the healthcare wearables. So more than half of the participants had chronic conditions. More than 2/3 reported having good to very good general health. So even people with general health that looks to be quite a good condition, and they use healthcare wearables. So it does not mean that only patients are using the healthcare wearables, but it can be any other ordinary people who are interested in understanding their own health. So nearly 2/3 of them did not use tablets or mobile devices to support keeping track of the health information. Only 13.44% of them share healthcare information from devices with other healthcare providers. So this is a very personalized data, and that's why most of the people are not willing to share the data with other service provider, because this is your own data, and you are aware of that. And that is the reason why security and privacy is a concern. So this is just a exploratory data analysis being shown, but we can also use other machine learning algorithms to demonstrate the correlation between different variables and also the importance. So all the features had correlation values less than 0.7, which signifies that multicollinearity was absent in the data set and imply a more substantial regression calculation, which means that if you can see this clearly, when you are above 0.7, which means that different factors that are related to one or the other. But you can see that some factors are having very low values, and some are even having a negative value, which means that you are negatively correlated. So it shows that a lot of factors, they are independent to each other. Maybe they are not even have any dependency, or maybe some of the reasons you are adopting the healthcare wearables are just solely based on one or two factors, or maybe a very specific factors. So this is correlation metrics will help us to understand any factors, are they related to each other, and if so, the level of dependency. Then the analysis method in the integrated approach, because this is one of the key message and contribution from our paper. So as you know, a lot of study, you either use statistical analysis, and you just use statistics, or you may use PLS-SEM. PLS-SEM has been very popular in some domains of information system, but then without PLS-SEM, there might be certain things they may not be able to perform analysis better. But then also there are other domain experts that use machine learning. So our contribution is that there are different methodology. They have offer a very insightful way of analysis. So each method may have its own advantages or distinctive uniqueness. So our approach integrate all of them together, because we don't want to miss any data, but also we want to ensure the consistency. We do not wish that you may notice that certain research that you may find because they use different methods and they have even a different interpretation, and that kind of interpretation may be sometimes having a completely different outcomes. Therefore, in order to minimize the discrepancy, in order to ensure that we do not miss anything, and then we have the consistency over by different methods. So the methods should have also a consistency on that. So we offer a very unique but integrated approach to have statistical analysis, PLS-SEM, machine learning, and the three combined methods to get the best output, so that the results are also consistent with each other, and also we extract the most meaningful result from it. And we combine the strength of each analytical methods. This is a new approach that ensures more comprehensive analysis that will not miss anything important, but also we ensure that they are very seamlessly integrated, not like you have to learn a very difficult approach. So we will demonstrate the benefit of doing so by approach. The scale accuracy analysis. So no indicator loaded less than a minimum threshold value of 0.4. So as we can see that the Chrome batch alpha is very commonly used in information systems. So values with 0.7 above will be better, but also sometimes in some circumstances, if you find that it's very hard to find the sample size, or maybe a certain group may have a very diverse way of view. So sometimes 0.6 can be acceptable, but also reliability, the higher the value, the more reliable. So in some cases we have 1, but also in some cases we have 0.75. And also measures are acceptable values of 0.6, 0.7, 0.5 for complex alpha. And also we have the CR-AVE average respectively. So in terms of statistical analysis shows that the results are pretty consistent. Also the assessment result indicated the convergence, validity, and reliability measurements were met, which meant our framework indicator could demonstrate consistency and explainable, and also explain the variable quite a good extent. The scale accuracy analysis. So then we perform the discriminant validity assessment. So we use the Fornell Lacker criterion. So the AVE value square root was higher for every variable than the correlations between each pair of variable, indicating that discriminant validity requirement was satisfied. So as you can see that the AVE value square roots were higher, and as you can see, it means that we can satisfy those requirements, and all the construct HTMT ratio were less than 0.9. And then the result indicated the rigid evidence of good discriminant validity for all the constructs. So we perform the statistical analysis, and you can see that when you are having those values, the healthcare related value was also having a good ones. And also the other one, the technology related usage is also having a good values. Then we use the second approach, the structural model assessment, which means that we try to understand whether they can accept the hypothesis. So we then perform the 95% confidence interval for the age, the birth, gender, the health related information, income, marital status, technology related values were significant with 95% confidence interval. So in this case, they show that they have a significant impact on the usage of wearable devices in the healthcare domain. Among them, the influences of age, healthcare related, and marital status were positive, while those of the birth, gender, income, and technology related were negative. So this is whether we can accept the hypothesis or not by looking at the p-values. But of course, there is a different topic, not necessarily for the p-value, but in statistical analysis, p-value has been used, whether you accept or reject. So the first one, our analysis reject, then and second and third one accept, fourth one reject, fifth one accept, sixth one accept, and seventh one reject, and then the rest of the hypothesis accept. So the technology-related variable had a significant positive impact on the privacy and the security concern, especially this is the number 8 and also the number 10. So the more you use those technologies, although you are more acceptable to the usage, but you are having a growing concern on the security and privacy and the use of your own data by the other service provider, or even their clients, and you do not wish that your data are being shared without your permission, even though at the beginning you allow them to use this data, but it doesn't really mean they can just use data for whatever uses without you being acknowledged and known. The structural model assessment, surprisingly, privacy and security concern do not affect healthcare wearable adoption in our study. So there's a very interesting fact that although people know this can be a concern, but it does not stop people from using this. So it's just like in social media is another example, of course, like people sometimes find it very difficult without the use of social media. They are not able to communicate with the community, to the stranger, to networks, to their friends, although they know they can be the security and privacy concern that may also leak certain data without themselves realizing it. So this finding implies a strong implication about the current awareness level about the privacy and security of wearables. So wearables need to fulfill this challenge. And of course, we have to keep the services, the systems, and also the user community in a highly secure manner without leaking or exposing any sensitive data. And also we have to ensure that all the parties work under the agreement that the usage of data has to be carefully handled throughout the process at all times. It really doesn't mean that after the study, anybody can just misuse any data. So one of the reasons is that the customers do not have enough understanding of the laws of the privacy and potential security matters involved with many tech companies in the US, because the breach of data and also the mishandling of data, and also the concern they may be selling the data to the third party or even some other service providers, because people are just do not know all this, and maybe because the users just do not know, or maybe the service provider do not tell them exactly. That's why people, although they have that concern, they still use. And this is a very contradictory view, but it might be also due to the knowledge hiding. So 84% of US consumers will worry about data. They really safeguard information in action based on one researcher's point of view. So other potential reasons may include the consumers trusting the company or government, or being satisfied with existing data policies and not feeling targeted. So it might be because people know those issues, but they trust the service provider and the way they handle the data. So machine learning, in this case, will be useful because machine learning can then further provide more information and also a more precise level of accuracy. So the neural networks show the best results for both training and testing regarding to accuracy, precision, recall, and F1 score. So then we have then show with a performance evaluation, with a logistic regression, gradient boosting, and neural networks. And then we can have the train and test in place. And then we look at accuracy, precision, recall, and F1. And then if we just look at accuracy, the final outcome, you can show that they have a very close view, very close to 80% to even 82% in some cases for training. And in the test, that we will vary between 78% to 80%. So in tests, that means that usually you may have a slightly lower outcomes during your training. It's also, in reality, it's also the same because your actual outcome may not be usually better than your rehearsed outcome. So according to the feature importance score, then we use the feature importance score to understand what will be the most important factors or most important reasons. So the features that hugely influence wearables users' prediction were the tablet support, age, and income. So if the tablet can work well with a wearable, so which means that your result can be seen on tablets, and also the tablet show very graphic intense analytics to tell you the truth or the things that you've got to be aware. Then users are more acceptable to that. And also age, because there is a tendency that younger generation are more acceptable to the use of high-tech and smart wearables. Also income level, so those high-income earners, they are more likely to use those technology. And consistent with the result in structural assessment, people who are more familiar with technology, especially those who experience using tablets, are the most critical contributor to predict wearable users. So our machine learning algorithms, the result also show consistency with another method, with a structural assessment, which means that both methods have very similar outcomes. And of course, that's also very useful research. It's not just one method, then you try to say, oh, that's the conclusion. But then we use different techniques to get the very close outcomes. That's also very helpful for future research. So the conclusion is that, first of all, the study has notable practical applications for omnichannel healthcare supply chain businesses and the wearables industry by providing the contemporary ethical challenges of wearables in healthcare and raising awareness of existing issues with the recommendation. Because first of all, it's very practical, and this is the area that people want to know further, because now there are growing demands for patients and even ordinary users to know about their healthcare status, and they want to have a real-time update. And therefore, we then demonstrate what are the factors and also the growing concerns, especially in terms of security and privacy. So determinants of the actual wearables used are investigated and predicted by the proposed framework, taking into consideration the potential influence of privacy and security concerns on consumers' users, which point out as emerging future research areas in the omnichannel healthcare supply chain businesses, because we then show the determinants, what are the important things, and we also show whether they have been accepted or rejected by the hypothesis, and we then and demonstrate whether there are any interdependencies or any correlation between different vectors. And that's also very important for people to know, because the reasons of adopting certain technology is not just based on one or a few factors, but we have to cross-check the consistency between them. And based on the study's framework and suggestions, digitalization and big data analytics have a critical role in the omnichannel healthcare supply chain business. And wearables facilitate the healthcare transformation process and supply chain management, because they are also overlap and also common ground for interest. It's not just that, people in certain domain, they only work on certain technology, but certain technology are widely acceptable and with a growing number of sectors and domain. Therefore, we should actually look at the research from different angles, so to understand whether there can be any lessons learned and also a recommendation that can be adopted by different sectors or so. And why should I start a paper? First, because we have four reasons for this. First, to the best of our knowledge, this is the first time the healthcare wearables role in the omnichannel healthcare supply chain business are discussed. A framework to utilize wearables and IoT to enhance patients' experience and engagement is proposed. Because although there are other research, but this is the first kind that we talk about this with a lot of data and also real people's response in place. And also we then go deeper instead of just use one method, but we use 3 methods and integrated them together. Second, this paper systematically reviews the ethical concern of the wearable devices in the healthcare sector and summarizes these ethical challenges, because ethical challenges is not just by word, but it's actually happening in our day-to-day challenges all time, and it's happening every second, and there are growing numbers now. So it's getting very, very critical. Hence, this study identified existing ethical issues in the healthcare wearables domain and aims to raise awareness, because it's no use just knowing it, but we need to find any possible recommendations to solve a problem. To some extent, we cannot solve a problem straight away, but at least we then try our best to identify what the problems are, and then we can then make suitable recommendation to embrace the omnichannel strategy. And the strategy got to be also improved on regular basis. Next, the wearables actual usage in healthcare, relatively unexplored topic, is investigated in this study using U.S. national survey data. We apply a data-driven model, machine learning in big data analytics, in short called BDA, to predict wearable adoption and demonstrate how this approach could enhance supply chain management, because supply chain management now have a heavy use of the machine learning and big data analytics to understand the insight, because what the insight of the data will be more useful for any discipline, but also we have to predict the likely outcomes, and the use of techniques demonstrated by this paper offer a very good solution. We have nearly 80%, slightly sometimes to 82% accuracy. Of course, nothing can be 100% accurate, and we're also learning how to make a better accuracy in the long term. So at least that we show that it can be done, and we show some insight and also lessons learned for supply chain management. Finally, the impact of the privacy and security concerns, which are most discussed ethical concerns, leadership, but also current challenge in omni-channel strategy, are highlighted, examined, and we have also integrated the approach with statistical analysis, the PLS-SEM, and machine learning. There's 3 different methods that can work together very well, and they have a consistent result, because it's also important we don't lead to the danger that we use one method and try to make a conclusion without ignoring others. So we have used 3 methods to give a more fair view, and also more neutral, more independent view, and also to cross-check the results are very consistent, and to ensure that our results have the most reliable or also close to reality. Although it's 80%, but we are still learning how to make it better. And this integrated approach is one of the recommended example you should really consider. At least we will try to integrate them and see whether you can get a similar outcomes also. So if you can, please go to the link of the paper. I'm going to also encourage you to read the paper and cite our paper, or consider citing our paper if you find it relevant, useful, and also inspiring, because we make it free forever just for you. Yes, it's free forever, and we will appreciate your time to read our paper and listen to our talk. And thank you so much. And hopefully I'm going to do another similar talk at some point. Thank you. Have a good time. Bye.